And we'll be getting started in just a minute. I think we have another minute or so. Let the stragglers get in there and we'll take off here. I want to thank my moderator, Professor Betsy Langness, who is monitoring the chat room, and I cannot see the chat room at all. So feel free to hold your questions to the end, and I'll try to answer everything as well as possible. We'll have a Q&A session at the end here. All right. Guys, welcome to the KOOL conference 2022. Uh, this session is on the Blackboard Exemplary Course Program, or ECP, and what, why, and how. My name is David Childress. I'm a professor at ACTC. I teach computers and information technology. I am a ECP recipient, and I went through the KOOL Academy. I was in the pilot program. It was great, and I'm going to throw a plug in about that here at the end of the session here today. So let's get started. You know, the purpose of this presentation is really not that you'll be an ECP rubric expert, but you will know that there is an objective guideline based on best practices of online teaching and learning. And you can utilize it to help you build your online or web enhanced course. And so this is really a good overview of the Blackboard, and I'll call it Blackboard throughout the presentation, but Blackboard Anthology ECP rubric. So what is it? The Blackboard Exemplary Course Program actually began back in 2000, so it's been around for some time. The goal is to identify best practices for designing high quality courses. The core of the program is the Exemplary Course Rubric, and it defines key characteristics of high quality courses. There's four main areas it looks like and we'll be looking at all of them individually, but course design, interaction and collaboration, assessment, and learner support. The rubric is offered under a Creative Commons license. Blackboard encourages use part or all, and you can submit your course for review at any time for free. So that is a good deal. Why should you do it? Well, online teaching and learning has been on the increase for several years, and this is, pre-COVID. At ACTC, we teach 40% or more of our classes entirely online, and the vast bulk of our classes are taught web enhanced via Blackboard and Anthology. Uh, I can tell you that my program, the CIT program, has been online for 12 years. Our whole program is entirely online. So, when COVID hit, I know a lot of people had to scramble to do it online. In a way, it sounds bad, but we were already teaching online. And I guess it was fortunate for us so we had a lot of experience in doing it, but I learned so much more by using the ECP. Also wanted to throw a plug there that it is peer reviewed and it uses best practices acquired over many years of teaching, learning in an online environment. And the goal is to help students succeed in an online learning environment. So how do you do it? Blackboard often hosts exemplary course programs webinars each semester, and they're absolutely free to attend. I know the KOOL folks also offer all sorts of webinars and professional development opportunities that you can take and help build your course towards the ECP goal. You're really working with like-minded folks and you're redesigning your courses to help with student success. It really is a win-win. And of course, shameless plug, it is an excellent professional development activity. It's all based on the ECP rubric. And one thing to make sure is that you want to use the latest rubric out there. I think it's actually, I have 2022, but I think they even have a 2023 version out there. It's included in the course handouts for this session. I've got the rubric, the slide deck, and also something else we'll talk about from KCTCS that's coming up. Again, remember that it really covers four main areas: course design, interaction and collaboration, assessment, and learner support. This is kind of noteworthy. Of course, you have the deck after this, the slide deck, but there are 191 total points available in the ECP rubric. In order to receive an exemplary course rating, you have to score at least 85%. So you don't even really have to score 100. You've got to get to at least 85 or better. If you score less than that, they even have ratings of what are called compelling and promising. Those are awarded with scores of 80 and 70% respectively. And the rubric is based on a dichotomous method. And basically, it means you have it or you don't. It's dichotomous is dividing into two parts. The earlier version of the ECP rubric, it was a rubric, and there were shades of gray. You did a great job, you did a okay job, you did a fair job. Well, now it's basically you have the element or you do not. So it's very objective. It's very clear cut. You either have that element or you don't, which is really nice. This is something else that's pretty noteworthy about the rubric. Each rubric standard, and we're going to break them down. We'll go through all of them, but each standard is valued from 1 to 5 points. And standards that are worth 5 points each are what are called compulsory standards. If without them, the course does not meet the ECP standard. In other words, you could actually have better than the 163 points that you need. But if you're missing one or more of the 5 point compulsory standards, your course does not meet the ECP guidelines. There's the scoring breakdown. Again, the maximum is 191 points, but you need 163 points or more to get to that 85% or better to earn the ECP award. By the way, if I go too fast, please, please holler. It doesn't bother me at all. That third cup of coffee I had this morning may kick in and I may zoom right through this. So it doesn't bother me a bit to back up. Section 1 of the rubric covers course design, and that addresses elements of instructional design. Uh, you're looking at the structure of the course, the learning objectives, the organization of your content, and instructional strategies. The ECP standards on this part of the rubric rate from 1.1 to 1.16, and that's how they describe it. You'll see an example of this coming up. There are a total of 61 points for section 1 on course design. And there are 6 standards worth 5 points each. So there are 6 compulsory standards there. You're looking at goals and objectives, content composition and structure, learner engagement, and technology use. And this is what section 1 of the rubric looks like. So you can see under section 1, course design, what I did is I highlighted, this is all of the rubric for section 1, but I highlighted the 5 point compulsory standards for you. So for example, 1.1 of the rubric, goals and objectives are clearly written, appropriate for the course level, and aligned to desired outcomes. 1.4 of the rubric, content is made available or chunked in manageable segments. You're breaking it down into components. Uh, you're not presenting everything at once on day one. That's kind of scary when a student walks in there, there's 20 chapters, thrown at them at day one. So that's a compulsory standard. And as an example of something that's not, 1.7, low cost or cost materials for use when available. That's a 1 point standard. It sounds like they're giving it a low value, but they being Blackboard and Anthology, they know that's not always available to you. Sometimes you have to use, store-bought materials. But if you can, it's definitely worth a point. Um, 1.14. Course files are in common format. You're going to use PDFs. You're going to use things that can or documents, things that can be used with screen readers, screen magnification, and that is a big deal. The goal here is also, you want to be ADA compatible, and the ECP rubric addresses that as well. So I'm not going to go through every one of these guys. These are on your handouts, and I've made the rubric available to you. But I did wanted to highlight some of the high points. You can see there's the point values there, and the ones again that I've highlighted in yellow, they're compulsory. Section 2 of the rubric covers interaction and collaboration, and they can take on many forms. You can have asynchronous or synchronous communication. It seems like a lot of things are aiming towards synchronous communication, but this is not always possible in an online course. There's ways to do it. I have collaborate sessions. I've met with students via Teams, Zoom meetings, you name it. But you can also do things asynchronous. You can have graded discussion boards and uh, group work. There's a lot of things that you can do. Really, the main goal is to create a learning community, and that's what they're aiming for. You don't want each student to perceive that they're by him or herself, and that happens a lot, I'm afraid, in an online course, and a lot of times in an in-person course. You want them to know that it is a class. There are fellow students that are taking it with them. On the rubric, standards range from 2.1 to 2.9, and for a total of up to 31 points. There is one 5-point standard. Items on the section 2 of the rubric include communication strategies, development of a learning community, and interaction logistics. And this is what section 2 of the rubric looks like. Aha. So here's section 2, interaction and collaboration. And you can see there's our 5-point compulsory guideline. For example, 2.7, a rubric or equivalent grading document is included to explain how participation will be evaluated. So, for example, in a graded discussion board, you may have a rubric that says, if you just say, I agree, well, that's not a very good interaction there. So I have a very detailed rubric that explains everything from 0 to 100% on what they need to do to earn that. But you can see sections of the rubric deal with development of learning community, 2.4 to 2.6, and there's the different point values there for you. You may try synchronous or asynchronous. Section 3 of the rubric deals with assessment, and that does focus on instructional activities measured or designed to measure progress toward learning outcomes, provide feedback to students and instructors, and providing feedback is a big deal. Uh, you're looking at assessments running from 3.1 to 3.9, and they include three 5-point standards. It's worth up to 35 points total. Items include learner expectations, assessment design, and learner self-assessment. And this is what section 3 of the rubric looks like. You see there's section 3. For example, uh, 3.1, it is clear to students how performance in an assessment will be evaluated. You'll have a grading rubric. You'll explain the grading system, your grading system, in a syllabus. And so a lot of these things, you'll be surprised, we already do as faculty. And so it's good to get point values for things that you're already doing. Your assessments are aligned to goals, objectives, and content and are visible to the learner. And that's not mandatory, but it's worth 4 points. This is a good one. 3.5, assessment activities occur frequently throughout the duration of the course. You're not throwing all your eggs in one basket. You're not giving them a final at the end of the term, where they make or break it based on one exam. I have several quizzes throughout the semester. I have graded discussion boards, assignments, projects. There's a lot of things that students do to earn points throughout the semester. And I use multiple type of assessment, just like I mentioned. I use quizzes, graded discussion boards, projects, all sorts of things that allow students to uh, put these things into practice that they've learned. I also try to give them meaningful feedback. I let them know what's good and what's wrong. And I actually have self-graded quizzes and many times and that give automatic feedback. So as soon as they take the quiz, it's scored automatically for them, and it gives them feedback on what they did. If they missed anything, it gives them a feedback on that as well. Section 4 is also very important. It deals with learner support and it addresses the support resources made available to students taking the course. It can be library support, tech support for anything that you're using external to the learning management system you're using. For example, there's Test Out, Connect, Lab Sim. There's a lot of things out there. My Lab, IT, those sort of things. So you want to make sure that there's support for your students if something goes wrong. Notice that the point values are run up to 64 points and there's four 5-point compulsory standards. These include orientation to the course and learning management system, the instructor contact information and communication policy and guidelines, course institution policies and support, accessibility and technical factors for learner support and feedback. And this was what the section 4 of the rubric looks like. Section 4 of learner support, orientation to the course and learning management system. There's a compulsory guideline. I have a welcome video that runs through the course, and I make it mandatory for my students starting off to view. It's actually an assignment just to help them get started. I have a content area in all of my courses labeled Start Here, and it's available throughout the entire semester. So students can quickly refer back to everything that I think that they should know from day one. 4.4 is really easy. Contact information for the instructor is easy to find. It's under my Start Here module. It's in my syllabus. I have my contact information in at least 4 different locations in each of my courses. So it's that one is low hanging fruit, but mandatory. Students should know how to contact you. 4.9 is a good one. Your course and instruction policies are there on decorum, behavior, and etiquette. They're included and easy to find. Mine's in the Start Here. And if I see things, kind of break down, if I start getting emails that are, a little bit less than they should, I emphasize this again very quickly. I also have a Start Here quiz. It covers everything that's in my Start Here folder, and I have that due the first week of course. So the students walk through, and I know that they've seen things because it'll have seen the things that they need to know on getting started in the course. There's accessibility factors. Your multimedia is optimized for web delivery, streaming versus downloading. You're watching ADA compatibility. You put your course or institution policies in there. Bad weather, things like that. We have that all in there. So these are all really good things to know. You have alternative file types provided. And again, it's wise to use common file formats, doc, PDF, JPEG, MP3, things that are very common that students won't have problems opening or accessing. So there's the total points possible. You can get up to 191, but the points that you are required to get are 163. And there's the breakdown from exemplary, compelling, and promising. And hopefully you don't get to keep trying. Here's a fast facts and review for you. There are 4 main categories on the rubric: course design, which has 16 subcategories and 6 compulsory items. Interaction and collaboration, 9 subcategories and 1 compulsory item. Assessment itself, which has 9 subcategories and 3 compulsory items. And finally, learner support, which has 19 subcategories and 4 compulsory items. In all, there are 53 subcategories on the ECP rubric. Interestingly enough, Remember that point values run from 1 to 5 for each item, and the 5 points items are compulsory. You have to have them. If you leave off one, your course is actually not ECP ready. What I think is interesting are there are 14 total compulsory items, category 5, I guess what I call them, and they add up to 70 points. So even if you include all the compulsory items, you only have 70 points. You still have to earn 93 additional points for your course to rate as exemplary. So they're good to have, and you actually have to have them, but you still got to include several others to get there. So what are the benefits? Why do you want to do this? Well, there's several reasons. For students, course design includes elements required for student success. You'll have much better success if students can log in and find what they need quickly. And there's a method to your madness, basically. You have things set up so that it's uniform and, well, easy to navigate. Course navigation is straightforward and consistent. Your content is chunked, so not to be overwhelming. This is a biggie. You don't want to throw everything at them the first day. And the communication between the students and faculty are enhanced. For faculty, there's a lot of benefits. A better course design usually means improved student success, and that's why we're here. And it really does. Overall, I think it is an improvement. Less questions such as when is this due? And if you still get them, you can easily point to the reference. A better standard design method that still allows for academic freedom. And I get to tell you, I get asked about this a lot. What about academic freedom? Well, I tell you, this has nothing to do with academic freedom at all. It's really the ECP is about course design. That is it. You can use the material you want. You can teach the way you want. You can do everything that you did in the past. The ECP is really based on good quality online course design. That is it. So you still have 100% academic freedom. And this is a big one. Once you build the course in ECP format, you can copy and reuse it. Your course is ready to go next semester. And ultimately, you have done your best. And I tell faculty that ask me about this all the time, it is a marathon. You're it's not a sprint. You're building all the time. I'm always tweaking and making improvements and adjusting and tweaking here and doing this and doing that all the time. And, you know, new technology tools, tips, and methods are always on the horizon. Change is constant, and we're always changing and adding this. And that's another reason to remember that the ECP rubric does get updated. So you always want to make sure that you're using the latest version because of the tools and features that are available now. So how do you submit a course for ECP review? Well, here's some tips that I can share with you. I created a separate content area in my Blackboard course, and I called it for ECP reviewers, so it would stand out. And I put my expanded rubric narratives in there. I covered every part of the rubric, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, and so on. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about this. Let me jump ahead for just 1 second. Ah, Whenever you submit a course for the ECP, what happens is there are four text boxes. I guess that's the best way to say it. And you have to put your narratives. You have four separate narratives for the four parts of the rubric. Well, the problem is that they're limited to word size. I wanted to say there's maybe 200 characters or 200 words, or there's a limit to each box. And it was shockingly underdone for me. I could probably get a quarter of one of my rubrics in there. So I pared them down so they would fit, but that is why I put my full narratives in that ECP reviewers part on my course. I made that content area and I put it in there because I wanted to make sure that the reviewers knew that I had addressed it. And it sounds like a lot of extra work, but I tell you, I just kept a Word document open. And I put my name up there, ECP rubric. And as I addressed each one, I just put, 1.1, this is what I did, and this is where I did it. 1.2. And it really helped me to keep track of everything. Am I covering everything? Do I have enough points to do it, to make this? And so it was really helpful. But again, unless they've made a change, their little text areas for doing that are very small. I found, and so it was really good ideal to do this. Again, the process is absolutely free. That's just fantastic. Here's the downside. It is free, and so it does take time. When I submitted my course, it was several months before I even heard anything from them. One day I got an email out of the blue, and basically it said, "Well, your course is still review." Well, that was at least I knew I knew something was happening, and so that was good. It was about a month later that I heard that I had successfully earned the ECP award. So I was very happy about that. So it did take a long time, though. It's a slow process. Oh, this was interesting too. I learned that my course had two reviewers. One was a professor from Connecticut, and the other was a professor from Australia. I had no idea who was viewing my course. I had no contact with them at all. And Blackboard Anthology is an international organization, so you have no idea who's reviewing your course. Again, I didn't know anything about this until after I had earned the award, and the process was completely over. If you do not earn the award, the reviewers will give you feedback so you can revise and resubmit your course. The process begins again. Here's something that you may have already heard about, and if not, you probably will shortly. I've also included this in my list of handouts, the KCTCS Essential Standards, or keys. The keys are what KCTCS is moving towards for all online courses. It establishes 21 minimum standards for all online courses that we're expected to meet, and most colleges in our system have already started to incorporate them into their, quality assurance, and we will do so over the next couple of years. Notice something. The keys offer guidance and effective online teaching practices across four categories: course design, interaction and collaboration, assessment, and learner support. Does that sound familiar? They're all pulled directly from the ECP rubric. So as we use the keys, it's really being pulled from the ECP, which they're pulling it from an excellent source. So what was my experience? I did the KOOL Academy and the pilot program, and it was very positive. I can tell you, I've been teaching online for a long time, and I thought my Blackboard course was great. But when reviewed by the objective rubric, I found there was a lot of things that needed to be addressed, and it was a good idea to have a separate pair of eyes looking at it. Don't forget that the ECP rubric provides a guideline for building a better online course and to promote student success. Some good tips: work with your local e-learning coordinator and or an instructional designer if you have one available. Help you work on your course, and it does help with that second pair of eyes or more. And a good tip: do not be offended when receiving feedback. Remember what the goal is. They're evaluating your course using a very objective rubric. It's dichotomous. You either have the element or you don't. And so it is peer reviewed, and the goal is to improve your course and student success. Here's our pilot group, good group of folks. And just to summarize, make sure that you're using the updated or latest ECP rubric. There are many versions out there on the internet. Here's a web address that can help you get started. Here's some contacts from the good folks at the KOOL Academy. And, I just wanted to throw in a plug again. I think that the KOOL Academy and the ECP are excellent ideals. I want to thank you so much for attending today. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to jump in there. Please use the chat feature at the lower right of the screen. And if you have to leave, have a great day. I want to thank you so much for attending.
Thanks, David. I don't see any questions in the chat at the moment, but please make sure that you do post in your chat. Before everyone leaves, I do have an announcement. Um, Carolyn Cooper won the random attendance prize
All
for
right.
attending this session, and she
Woo,
won a Dino Fire wireless presenter. So,
nice.
Carolyn, the KOOL conference participants will be contacting you um, to receive your prize. So,
Nice.
congratulations on that. Let's see. We do have one question, David. Is there any research to suggest whether all modules should be open at the beginning or open on completion of the previous module or prerequisites?
That is that is really kind of up to the instructor. It really is. I've seen it done both ways. Uh, I have seen where it kind of depends on the content. Some instructors want their students to master that content before it opens up the next uh, chapter or module, and there is an argument to be said for that. Some faculty have strict deadlines. You know, chapter one or module one is due on this date. Uh, Here it is. Now module two opens up. And so it's kind of a make or break. So really, it's kind of up to you. I've seen some instructors do it where each student has to successfully pass each module, and they're on an open time frame. So they'll have to successfully pass one, then two opens up. They have to, you know, and then so on. And then basically they have until the end of the semester. So you have several options to you. Good question.
Do you have any preference for that, David? I mean, do you use one over the other?
I actually, believe it or not, I use a combination. In one of my
Okay.
courses, it is strict. I have there's 8 modules, and I allow 2 weeks per module, but they open and close every 2 weeks. And so
Okay.
I do modularize it. I do chunk the content. They only see one chapter at a time. Uh,
Okay.
I And then another class, it's kind of content dependent. Basically, I open each content weekly, but I allow for 100% makeup or redo without penalty. The students could go back in, they can redo or make up anything for zero penalty. Of
Okay.
course, they have till the end of the semester, and then I add in their new grades every time.
We have one other question. What does
Sure.
the rubric say about authentic assessment?
Well, it wants to make sure that you are using multiple assessment tools. And that kind of deals with authentic assessment. You're not just putting all your eggs in one basket. For example, I use quizzes for one example, but I make sure that they're timed. I also make sure that I scramble the questions and the answers. So, you know, and I know where there's the will, there's a way, but I try to make it difficult. I guess that's as possible. So I will randomize questions and answers, um, and I put firm due dates and I time them for anything that's like a quiz, multiple choice, that sort of thing. Other than that, I require papers, and I have a very clear policy in my syllabus about cheating. If how I do mine is if if you're caught cheating, you and the one that you cheated from both get a zero, just like that. And if you do it the second time, you both fail the course. So uh, it's happened in the past. I've caught people, and usually 1-0 takes care of that, especially for the
Hmm.
person that allowed the cheating, if you know what I mean. Once they get a
Sure.
zero, they're not inclined to do that in the future. Good
Gotcha.
question. Anything else?
I'm not seeing any other questions in the chat, but does anyone else have any questions for David about the ECP rubric?
Is everybody ready for the test? I have 100 question test here that any any questions at all?
Well, and David did post all of his information, his presentation, as well as um, the ECP rubric and the essential standards as well. So the keys standards as well. And he posted all of that in the presenter slides and handouts on the KOOL conference site.
Guys, I want to thank you again for attending my session today, and thank you for attending the KOOL conference. It's a good ideal, and I hope you take something away that you can use to help improve your courses and help student success.
Thanks, Dave.